Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the English Hour. I'm your host, Sophia, and today I'm joined by our wonderful guest and friend, Jacob. We're diving into a really important and relatable topic for English learners: how to build confidence when speaking in English. Jacob, great to have you here.
Thanks, Sophia. It's always a pleasure. And you're right, confidence is key when it comes to language learning. But it's also something many people struggle with, especially when they're just starting out.
Absolutely. I remember when I first started learning a new language, I was so nervous to speak out loud, even though I knew the words. Jacob, what do you think causes that hesitation?
I think it's mostly fear of making mistakes, of being judged, or even just freezing up mid-sentence. But the funny thing is, mistakes are part of the process. You have to make them in order to improve.
Exactly. I always tell our listeners, it's like learning to ride a bike. You're going to wobble and fall at first. But that's how you learn to balance. And the more you speak, the more natural it becomes.
100%. And something that helped me a lot was practicing with myself, like speaking in front of a mirror, or even recording my voice on my phone and listening back.
Oh, that's a great tip. It helps you hear your own pronunciation and get used to your voice in English. I've also heard learners say they like shadowing podcasts or movies, just repeating what they hear out loud.
That's actually a method I still use. And it's not just about pronunciation, it also helps with sentence rhythm, intonation, and confidence. You start mimicking how native speakers talk.
Yes. And one thing I want to remind everyone is native speakers aren't perfect either. We make mistakes all the time. So don't put that pressure on yourself to be flawless.
So true. And something I've learned is that most people are actually really supportive when they see you trying to speak their language. They appreciate the effort,
That's a beautiful point, Jacob. It's not about being perfect. It's about being understood and making connections with people.
right? And I think that's where the magic happens, when you stop worrying about being perfect and just focus on communicating. Once that pressure is off, speaking becomes a lot more fun and natural.
Exactly. And sometimes, having a few key phrases in your pocket can give you that little boost when you're stuck. Like, can you please repeat that? Or, I don't understand. Could you explain it another way?
Yes, those kinds of phrases are lifesavers. And they keep the conversation going instead of shutting it down. Plus, people usually slow down or rephrase when they hear those things, which makes the learning environment less stressful.
Speaking of stress, what's your advice for learners who get really nervous in live situations? Like ordering at a restaurant or asking for directions.
That's a good one. My tip is prepare for those moments. Write down a few sentences you think you might need. Practice them. Even rehearse the entire scene if you want to. That way, when it happens, it's not completely new.
I love that. Rehearsing daily situations is such a practical idea. And it really does help lower anxiety when you've practiced something, even just once or twice.
Yeah. And another fun way is using role play with friends. You can pretend to be a customer and the other person is a waiter, or you're lost and need directions. It sounds silly, but it's really effective.
Oh, absolutely. And even if your friends don't speak English, you can still practice. Just switch between your native language and English. Or use online communities where people are also learning.
Exactly. The internet is full of language exchange groups, even apps where you can chat or voice call with people learning your language. It becomes a mutual learning space.
Totally. And I always say, even if you only speak for 5 minutes a day, it's still valuable. It adds up. Imagine how much better you'll be in just 1 month, with 5 minutes of practice every day.
That's such a motivating way to look at it. And I think we sometimes forget that small steps are powerful. You don't have to do an hour a day if that's too much. Even reading out loud or thinking in English for a few minutes is helpful.
Speaking of thinking in English, that's another great tip. Just narrate what you're doing in your head, like, I'm brushing my teeth, or, I'm making coffee. It helps build fluency and vocabulary naturally.
Yes, and it forces your brain to stay in English mode, which builds that instinct over time. And once that happens, you're not translating anymore. You're thinking and responding in English.
Great, let's keep going. I feel like we're on a roll. And this is such an important conversation for English learners out there.
Definitely. Another thing I wanted to mention is the importance of listening. A lot of learners focus so much on speaking that they forget how crucial it is to just listen. Watch movies, listen to podcasts, songs, and interviews. It helps train your ears.
Yes, and don't worry if you don't understand every single word. The goal is to get the gist, the rhythm, and the natural flow of English. Over time, the details start to fill themselves in.
Exactly. And I always say use subtitles in the beginning if you need to. First with your native language, then switch to English subtitles, and eventually try watching without any at all.
That's such a smart progression. And sometimes, watching something you've already seen in your own language can help. You know the story, so it's easier to focus on the English.
That's a great hack. It's like giving your brain a head start. Also, repeating scenes helps too. You can play a short clip over and over. Even try shadowing where you repeat what the character says, almost like echoing.
Oh, shadowing is powerful. It helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence. Even if you feel silly doing it, it really boosts speaking fluency over time.
And you don't even need to say it perfectly. Just try to match the pace and tone. Over time, your mouth gets used to the sounds and flow of English naturally.
Right, and let's not forget vocabulary. Do you have a favorite way of learning and remembering new words?
Yeah. I love using spaced repetition apps. The ones that remind you of a word just before you're about to forget it. It really helps move vocabulary into your long-term memory.
Those apps are brilliant. And another fun way is to create little stories with new words. Like, instead of just memorizing umbrella, create a short sentence or image. The cat held an umbrella in the rain. Silly, but it sticks.
Totally agree. Our brains love stories and visuals. Even drawing a picture next to the word can help. You don't have to be an artist, just something that connects you emotionally or visually to that word.
And what about writing? I feel like a lot of learners overlook writing practice.
Oh yes, journaling in English is amazing. It doesn't have to be perfect, just write how your day was, how you're feeling, what you want to improve. It helps organize your thoughts in English.
Plus, it gives you a record of your progress. You can look back a month later and see how much better you've gotten. It's super motivating.
Another cool thing about writing regularly, especially journaling, is that it starts showing you your weak points. Like, maybe you always forget how to use past tense verbs correctly, or you keep repeating the same basic words.
Right. It's like a mirror. You start spotting your habits. And then you can intentionally work on variety, like using synonyms, trying new sentence structures, or even connecting ideas with better linking words.
Yep. And once you notice those patterns, you can focus your learning. I often tell learners to keep a little vocabulary notebook, or even just a section in their phone. Every time you find a useful word or phrase, write it down.
I love that idea. And then go back and review that list every day. Even better, try using the words in a sentence right away. That's how you make the word yours.
Exactly. And this ties into something I always emphasize: don't just learn the word, use the word. Try it in speaking, in writing, in your thoughts. That's when it becomes natural.
So true. Oh, and let's talk a bit about confidence. So many learners tell me they're afraid of making mistakes, especially when speaking with native speakers.
Yeah, that fear holds a lot of people back. But the truth is, everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. You don't need perfect grammar to communicate. You just need to be clear and confident.
I always say mistakes mean you're trying. And trying means you're learning. It's actually a good sign.
And most native speakers are super supportive when they see someone putting in the effort to speak their language. They won't judge you. They'll probably admire you.
Absolutely. And practicing with other learners can help too. You don't always need a native speaker to improve. Conversation groups, language exchanges, or even talking to yourself out loud, it all builds fluency.
You know what helped me when I was learning Spanish? Talking to myself during daily tasks. Like, I am washing the dishes. I'm going to the store. The sky looks beautiful today. It's like turning your daily routine into a language lab.
That's brilliant. It keeps your brain thinking in English, which is so powerful for fluency. Even just thinking in English instead of translating from your native language can make a huge difference.
Yeah, because translation slows you down. But when you start forming ideas directly in English, everything flows more naturally.
I love where this conversation is going. There's so much more we can talk about: pronunciation tips, idioms, how to handle fast English speakers.
Oh yes, pronunciation. That's another big hurdle for many learners. English can be tricky because it's not always pronounced the way it's written. The word, though, doesn't sound anything like through, tough, or thought, but they're all spelled similarly.
Exactly, it can be super confusing. But one of the best ways to tackle that is through listening and repetition. Watching shows, listening to podcasts, or using pronunciation apps can really help you get a feel for how words sound in real conversation.
Totally. And one trick I used was shadowing. That's when you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say immediately, matching their intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation.
I love that method. It's like karaoke for English learning. And it improves not just your pronunciation, but also your listening skills and even your fluency.
And don't forget stress and intonation. English is a stress-timed language, so how you emphasize certain syllables or words can change the meaning of a sentence.
Yes, like the sentence, I didn't say he stole the money. If you stress different words, the meaning changes completely. Want to try it?
Sure. Okay, I didn't say he stole the money. Someone else did. I didn't say he stole the money. I never said that, and I didn't say he stole the money. So maybe I implied it. I didn't say he stole the money. Someone else did. I didn't say he stole the money. Maybe he borrowed it. I didn't say he stole the money. So maybe it was some money. I didn't say he stole the money. So maybe he stole something else.
That's such a good example. Stress can completely shift the meaning, and being aware of that makes your speaking and listening way stronger.
And learners shouldn't be afraid to exaggerate at first when practicing intonation. It might feel weird, but it helps lock in the rhythm and melody of English.
Right, it's like training your mouth and ears to work together. And over time, it becomes more natural. Also, recording yourself speaking and listening back is such a powerful tool. You notice things you'd miss in the moment.
Yes, you can compare your recording to native speakers and start to notice small differences. That kind of feedback loop helps you improve fast.
All of this shows that learning English isn't just about grammar or vocabulary, it's about rhythm, sound, culture, confidence, and mindset. It's such a rich journey.
It really is. And there's no one-size-fits-all method. What matters is finding what works for you, staying consistent, and enjoying the process.
Perfect. Let's dive even deeper then. We've talked about pronunciation and intonation. What about thinking in English? That's something a lot of learners struggle with, right?
Oh yeah, big time. Many learners translate everything in their head from their native language before speaking, and that slows them down a lot. But thinking in English is a game changer.
I agree. It's like training your brain to switch into English mode. Even starting small helps, like naming objects around you in English, or narrating your actions while doing chores.
Yes, like you're brushing your teeth and you say in your head, I'm brushing my teeth. The toothpaste is minty. I have to rinse now. It might seem silly, but it really helps build that automatic thinking.
And eventually, it builds confidence too. Because you're getting used to forming thoughts in English without translating. What about internal dialogue? Have you ever tried that?
Oh, absolutely. I'd have full conversations with myself. Like imagining a situation, ordering food at a restaurant, or asking for directions, and then playing out the dialogue in my head.
That's a powerful technique. And if learners make a habit of that, They'll be surprised how much easier it becomes to speak in real situations. What do you think about journaling in English?
Big fan of that too. Writing even a few sentences daily about your day, your thoughts, or plans for tomorrow helps solidify grammar, vocabulary, and structure. And it gives you a snapshot of your progress over time.
And it's private, so there's no fear of mistakes. It's just you and your words, experimenting and expressing freely.
Exactly. It's also a creative outlet. You can write letters to yourself or even short stories. It's all good practice.
You know, one thing learners often forget is to celebrate small wins. Like, even understanding a native speaker on the phone, or remembering a new word in conversation that's huge.
Totally. And I always say treat yourself like your own student. Be kind, patient, and encouraging. The more positivity you bring to learning, the more you'll stick with it.
Couldn't agree more. And the cool thing is, every mistake is just another step forward. You learn so much from them.
So true. And with enough practice and the right mindset, English can become not just a language you speak, it can become a part of who you are.
I love that. So for anyone listening, keep practicing, keep thinking in English, and enjoy every step of your journey.
Let's also talk about listening practice, because I think that's one of the best ways to get used to natural English. You know, like watching shows or listening to podcasts kind of like this one.
Yes, listening to English being spoken naturally helps a lot. And not just for understanding, also for picking up rhythm, common phrases, even slang.
And it doesn't have to be boring. Like, if you love cooking, watch cooking shows in English. If you're into science, find science YouTubers or documentaries.
Right. That way, you're learning through your interests. It doesn't feel like studying, it feels like fun.
Exactly. And subtitles can help at first. Start with English subtitles, then challenge yourself without them. Eventually, your ears will adapt.
And another tip is repeating what you hear. Like you pause the video, repeat the sentence exactly as they say it, intonation, stress, everything.
That's called shadowing, right? It's an awesome technique. It trains your mouth and ears at the same time.
Yes, and it builds muscle memory for speaking. So when it's time to talk in real life, your brain and mouth already know what to do.
It's almost like singing along with your favorite songs. You're not memorizing grammar rules. You're absorbing the language naturally.
Which reminds me, music is another great way to learn. Lyrics are full of expressions, emotions, cultural context.
And they stick in your head. I learned so many idioms and phrasal verbs just from songs.
Same here. Do you remember one of the first English songs you learned that really stuck with you?
Oh yeah, it was Let It Be by the Beatles. Simple, powerful lyrics, and the message was so comforting. Plus, it taught me a lot of basic sentence structure without me realizing.
That's such a classic. For me, it was Imagine by John Lennon. Beautiful language and easy to follow.
We're really showing our age with these choices, huh?
Maybe just our taste in timeless music.
Fair enough. But that's the beauty of language, it connects across time and cultures.
Absolutely. And I think when learners combine listening, reading, speaking, and writing in ways that they enjoy, it all starts to click.
Couldn't agree more. So whether it's podcasts, music, movies, or conversations with friends, immerse yourself.
And don't be afraid to mix it up. The more variety, the more dimensions you add to your learning.
You know, another thing that really helps is joining online communities, like Facebook groups or Reddit threads where people are learning English together.
That's such a good idea. It creates a sense of community, and you don't feel like you're learning alone. Plus, people often share helpful tips, or even correct each other gently.
Yeah, and some groups even organize speaking clubs or Zoom calls. You get to practice with real people from all over the world.
I love that. And it builds confidence. Even if you make mistakes, it's a supportive environment.
That's key. Feeling safe to make mistakes. Because let's be honest, you will make them. We all do, even in our native languages.
So true. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I once said, embarazada, thinking it meant embarrassed, but it actually means pregnant.
Oh no, classic language mix-up. I've had my share too. I once told someone in French that I was very excited instead of very excited. That conversation got awkward fast.
Mistakes like that are actually great stories later on. And they're part of the learning process.
Definitely. And if you can laugh at yourself, it takes the pressure off. Learning a language doesn't have to be serious all the time.
Right. Humor helps you remember things better, too. Like funny example sentences or silly mnemonics.
Speaking of remembering, have you used any specific memory techniques?
Yes, I use something called the memory palace. I visualize a room and place different words or phrases in specific spots. When I mentally walk through the room, I recall them.
That's brilliant. I've used flashcards with spaced repetition apps. They really work because they show you the word just before you're about to forget it.
Smart strategy. And it doesn't require long study sessions. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day, consistently.
Right, it's all about consistency. Small, daily steps lead to big progress over time.
And let's not forget about celebrating those small wins. Like understanding a full scene in a movie, or ordering food in English confidently.
Yes, every win counts. And the more you acknowledge them, the more motivated you stay.
Exactly. Motivation is what keeps the engine running, and seeing real-life results makes the journey exciting.
Let's talk about motivation a bit more. I think a lot of learners lose it because they expect quick results. Like, they want to be fluent in 3 months.
Yes, and when that doesn't happen, they feel discouraged. But language learning isn't a sprint. It's more like a marathon with scenic stops along the way.
I love that analogy. And those scenic stops are important, like your first full conversation with a native speaker, or understanding your favorite song's lyrics.
Exactly. I remember the first time I watched a movie without subtitles. I didn't understand every word, but I followed the story. I was so proud.
That's huge progress. Even partial understanding shows how far you've come.
It really does. And it reminds you that fluency isn't just speaking perfectly. It's about communicating and connecting.
Absolutely. Some of the best conversations I've had with learners weren't grammatically perfect, but they were full of meaning and emotion.
And sometimes, that imperfect communication makes the moment even more human, more authentic.
Yeah, it reminds us why we learn languages in the first place, to connect with people, cultures, and ideas beyond our own world.
That connection is powerful. I think that's the true reward of language learning, not just being able to speak, but being able to relate.
Totally agree. And that mindset shift from perfect grammar to real connection can take off so much pressure.
Yes, once learners stop chasing perfection and start focusing on progress and connection, it becomes so much more enjoyable.
So, what would you say to someone who's just starting their English learning journey and feeling overwhelmed?
I'd say take a deep breath. Start small. Don't try to learn everything at once. Just learn one useful phrase a day and use it. That builds confidence.
Great advice. And I'd add, immerse yourself in the language in ways that are fun for you. Watch English YouTubers, play games in English, sing along to songs.
Yes. The more you enjoy the process, the more you'll stick with it. Language learning should feel like an adventure, not a chore.
Speaking of adventures, Sophia, have you noticed how learners who treat English like an exploration tend to improve faster?
Definitely. They ask more questions, they're curious, and they're not afraid to make mistakes. That curiosity really speeds up their learning.
It reminds me of this one student I had. She would always come to class with a list of phrases she'd heard in movies, asking what they meant and how to use them.
That's such a great habit. It keeps learning alive and relevant to real life. And it turns passive watching into active learning.
Exactly. And once she started using those phrases in her own conversations, you could see her confidence bloom.
I've seen that too. It's like they start owning the language. It's not something they're just learning, it becomes part of who they are.
That's when real fluency starts to happen. When English isn't just something you study, it's something you live.
And living the language means thinking in it, dreaming in it, even joking in it. Do you remember the first time you thought in another language?
Oh yeah, it was so strange, but also kind of magical. I realized I wasn't translating anymore, I was just thinking.
That's such a huge step. It shows your brain is adapting and treating English as its own system, not just a mirror of your native language.
It's like switching gears. And once you do, your fluency just accelerates.
But of course, it takes time to get there. And that's okay. Everyone's brain works differently, and that's totally normal.
Patience is key, and also self-kindness. I tell learners speak to yourself the way you'd speak to a friend. Encourage yourself.
Yes, if your friend made a small grammar mistake, you wouldn't say, "You're terrible at English." You'd smile and help them, right?
Right? But we're so hard on ourselves. That's why community helps when you learn with others. You realize you're not alone in the struggle.
And it makes the journey more fun too. More laughs, more shared, aha, moments, more growth.
Speaking of shared moments, I remember once a student misunderstood the phrase, break a leg before a play. She looked horrified and said, "Why would you wish that on me?"
Oh no, that's such a classic one. Idioms can be so tricky, but also so funny once you get the meaning.
Totally. But moments like that make the learning experience memorable. You will never forget that phrase again.
And sometimes those funny misunderstandings lead to deeper understanding too. They make you curious about culture, not just grammar.
Exactly, language is culture after all. When we learn English, we're also learning how people think, feel, and connect.
And that's beautiful. It's what keeps me passionate about teaching English, not just the language, but the people and the stories behind it. You know, Jacob, that reminds me of how important it is to connect the language to real life experiences. It's not just about memorizing vocabulary, right?
Absolutely. It's about how you use that vocabulary in real, meaningful situations. Like if you're traveling, learning to order food in English or ask for directions is way more valuable than just knowing a list of words.
And I think a lot of learners forget that. They get caught up in formal grammar rules and forget to focus on what matters in day-to-day conversations.
Exactly. I always tell students that language is meant to connect you to the world, not to keep you isolated behind a textbook.
That's such a great way to put it. The goal should always be to have a conversation, not to sound perfect.
Right? Because guess what? No one speaks perfectly. Even native speakers make mistakes.
Yes, native speakers also use slang, informal expressions, and sometimes skip grammar rules when talking. It's all about context.
And that's the part that really helps learners sound natural. I had a student who once told me, "I understand English, but I don't speak it like a native."
That's totally normal. And honestly, who needs to sound exactly like a native speaker? As long as you can communicate clearly, that's what matters most.
For sure, I think confidence plays such a huge role in this, too. It doesn't matter if you're making small mistakes, if you're confident, people will understand you and appreciate the effort.
Confidence is everything. And, one of the best ways to build confidence is by practicing in real situations like with friends, or even in small groups online.
Yes, and the best part is, the more you practice, the less you worry about mistakes. You'll just start enjoying the process.
Absolutely. Learning should be fun, not stressful. When you make it a positive experience, you'll want to keep learning.
And that's when the magic happens. You're not just learning the language, you're living it.
That's such a great point. Jacob, it really shifts the focus from just getting it right to living the language.
Exactly. And I think learners forget that mistakes are a natural part of the journey. They're not setbacks, they're stepping stones.
Right. The more mistakes you make, the closer you get to fluency. Each mistake teaches you something valuable. That's why I always tell my students not to be afraid to speak up even if they're not sure.
That's the only way to learn. Even if you make a mistake, you're still practicing. You're still moving forward.
And learning in a community really helps with that. When you're surrounded by other people who are learning, you realize everyone is making mistakes and that's okay.
And it feels so good when you finally understand something you've been struggling with. That aha moment is the best.
It's the best feeling. And when that happens, it's not just about the knowledge, it's about the confidence boost it gives you to keep going.
Absolutely. And the more you immerse yourself in the language, the more you get those moments.
Exactly. Whether it's reading, listening, speaking, or writing, every little bit adds up. It's all part of the journey. Great. Jacob, let's dive a bit deeper into practical ways learners can integrate English into their daily routines. Any ideas?
Sure, one thing I always recommend is to start thinking in English. Even if you don't speak it all the time, try to label things around your house in English, or think about your daily activities in English.
That's such a simple but powerful technique. It helps train your brain to switch into English mode, even when you're not actively studying.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to talk to yourself in English, too. You might feel a little silly at first, but it really helps reinforce the language.
That's a good point. It's a great way to practice without the pressure of having to interact with others. And it gives you that extra time to form sentences and use new vocabulary.
Another tip is to listen to English podcasts or audiobooks during your daily commute or while doing household chores. That way, you're making the most out of every moment.
I love that. I'm all about multitasking in a way that helps you learn. You can absorb a lot by just listening, even if you're not actively studying.
Yes, and it's important to vary the content you listen to. Try podcasts, TV shows, news, and even music. Different accents and contexts will help you get used to the language in all its forms.
That's true. And you can also use subtitles to help connect what you're hearing to the written word. It's like combining listening and reading in one go.
Absolutely. And speaking of reading, I think it's super helpful to read books or articles that interest you. You're more likely to stick with it if it's something you enjoy.
Yes, reading is such a great way to expand your vocabulary without feeling like you're studying. If you're reading about something you love, the learning feels natural.
Totally. And even if you don't understand every word, don't stress about it. Just keep going, and the context will help you figure it out.
That's a really good tip. It's all about being patient with yourself. Learning isn't a race, it's a marathon. The more you practice, the better you'll get.
And don't forget to practice speaking, too. Find a language partner or use apps that connect you with native speakers. Speaking regularly will help improve your fluency.
It's so important to practice speaking out loud. Even if you don't have a partner, talking to yourself or using speech recognition tools can make a huge difference.
And on top of that, don't shy away from making mistakes. Speaking a language means you're going to make errors, but that's how you learn.
Exactly. I think once learners start embracing mistakes, they're more likely to improve faster. It's the fear of mistakes that can hold you back.
Right. And the more you expose yourself to the language in different ways, the more confident you'll become. It's about getting comfortable with the language.
Definitely. Confidence really is key, and once you feel comfortable, speaking and using English becomes second nature.
Absolutely. It's all about building that muscle of confidence and continuing to push yourself a little bit more each day.
That's such a great point. It's the little steps that add up. The more you practice, the better you'll get. And before you know it, English will be just a natural part of your day. I'm glad you're enjoying this conversation, Jacob. So, we've covered quite a few strategies for language learners. Do you think consistency is the most important factor in the learning process?
Without a doubt, consistency is key. Even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes a day, regular practice will build up over time and make a huge difference.
I agree. A lot of people expect quick results, but learning a language is a long-term investment. If you stay consistent, even on the tough days, you'll start to see progress.
And I think it's also important to remember that your progress won't always be linear. Some days will feel easier, others will be harder, but every step counts.
That's such an important reminder. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate results. But like you said, every day of practice adds up. And even on tough days, you're learning.
Exactly. I always tell people to celebrate small victories like understanding a phrase you couldn't a few weeks ago, or finishing a chapter in an English book. Those are the milestones to focus on.
Absolutely. Those small wins are the building blocks. And I think the more you celebrate them, the more motivated you become to keep going.
It's all about making the journey enjoyable, right? The more fun and rewarding you make it, the more likely you are to stick with it long term.
That's the truth. Learning doesn't have to feel like a chore. There are so many creative ways to make it fun, whether it's through games, songs, or chatting with friends in English.
Yes, and connecting with others can be such a huge motivator. Whether it's through online language groups, language partners, or even social media, finding a community can keep you inspired.
That's a great point. Having people to share your progress with or ask questions to can really make the process feel less isolating and more interactive.
And it's also helpful to learn about the culture behind the language. Understanding the context of the language, the idioms, expressions, and traditions makes learning more meaningful.
I love that. Culture and language are so intertwined. When you learn a language, you're also learning a new way of thinking, new customs, and even new perspectives on the world.
Exactly. And that's what makes learning English and any language so exciting. It's not just about memorizing words, but about connecting to a whole new way of life.
Such a powerful way to look at it. It turns language learning into an adventure rather than just a task.
Absolutely. And on that note, the journey is never really over. Even once you reach a high level of fluency, there's always room for growth, new experiences, and more discoveries.
So true. There's always something new to learn, even if you're already comfortable with the language. And it makes the process feel exciting every day.
That's why I always tell people to embrace the journey. The moment you stop thinking of learning as a task and start seeing it as an ongoing adventure, the fun really begins.
I couldn't agree more. The adventure of learning never really ends. And that's the beauty of it. Great, let's keep going. So, we've discussed consistency, celebrating small wins, and making the journey fun. But what about some challenges that people face when learning a language? What do you think are the biggest hurdles?
That's a good question. One of the biggest challenges I see is fear of making mistakes. A lot of learners worry about sounding silly or saying something wrong, and that holds them back from practicing.
That's such a common one. I think a lot of people forget that making mistakes is part of the process. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve.
Exactly. When you make a mistake, you're getting closer to mastering the language. And honestly, most native speakers don't care about little mistakes. What matters is that you're trying.
I think embracing mistakes is a mindset shift. Once you let go of the fear of making them, the learning process becomes much more enjoyable and less stressful.
Totally. And another challenge I see is people giving up too soon. They expect results too quickly and then get frustrated when they don't see immediate progress.
I agree, language learning takes time, and it's important to be patient with yourself. Sometimes the progress is slow, but it's always happening in the background.
And it's not just about speaking right away. Even improving your listening, reading, and writing skills adds up over time and will eventually help you speak more confidently.
That's such an important point. A lot of people focus on speaking and forget that the other skills, listening, reading, writing, are all part of the process. They support and strengthen each other.
Yes, it's a holistic approach. When you improve your listening, for example, you'll hear how words are pronounced, which will make speaking easier. Reading helps you see new vocabulary and context, and writing forces you to think more critically about sentence structure.
Exactly. They all work together to build a solid foundation. And when you immerse yourself in all of these skills, you begin to see how they support each other.
Speaking of immersion, I think that's another big thing people can do to speed up their progress. Whether it's watching movies, reading books, or listening to music in English, the more exposure you get, the better.
That's so true. And you don't even have to be actively studying all the time. Just by surrounding yourself with English, you're naturally absorbing the language. It's like learning by osmosis.
Yeah, It's almost like the language seeps into your brain when you're constantly exposed to it, even in a casual way. It's a fun way to learn without the pressure of formal studying.
And it's not just about passive exposure. Sometimes, challenging yourself with more difficult content, like watching a movie without subtitles, or reading a book you've never read before, can push you to learn new things.
That's a great way to level up. It can be tough at first, but when you push yourself like that, you really expand your vocabulary and comprehension.
Absolutely. And the sense of accomplishment when you finally understand something that once seemed too difficult is so rewarding.
It's those aha moments that make it all worth it. You realize how far you've come, even if it feels like you've been struggling at times.
And that's the beauty of language learning. It's a journey with its ups and downs, but in the end, you always look back and see how much progress you've made.
Exactly. Every word you learn, every conversation you have, is a step closer to fluency. It's all part of the bigger picture.
Well, Jacob, I think we've covered some really great tips today. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Would you like to share any final thoughts with our listeners?
Just to remind everyone that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. Be kind to yourself, embrace the challenges, and always keep pushing forward. You'll get there.
I love that, Jacob. It's all about pacing yourself and understanding that progress takes time. And I think that mindset is key to staying motivated throughout the learning process.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others, but the journey is different for everyone. What works for one person might not work for you, and that's okay. The important thing is to find your rhythm.
Right. And with so many resources out there, you can always try new things until you find what clicks for you. Whether it's apps, podcasts, language exchange partners, or online courses, the options are endless.
I agree. There's so much variety, and that keeps it interesting. One day you might feel like diving into grammar, and another day you might want to listen to a podcast or watch a show. It's all part of the adventure.
And I think making the language learning process as enjoyable as possible is essential. The more fun you have with it, the more you'll want to keep going.
Exactly. Whether you're joking around with friends in English or writing silly stories, it keeps you engaged and gives you a reason to keep practicing.
And when you do something you enjoy, you don't even notice how much you're learning. It just becomes a natural part of your routine.
It becomes second nature. And that's when you know you've made real progress. When you're not just studying anymore, but living in the language.
That's the dream, right? To not have to think about it, to just speak, listen, and understand without effort.
And with each step, you're getting closer to that goal. I think sometimes it helps to look back and reflect on how far you've come. We get so focused on where we want to be, but it's also important to appreciate how much we've already achieved.
So true. That's why I always encourage people to celebrate those small wins, even if it's just understanding a conversation you once thought was too difficult, or using a new phrase in a chat with a native speaker.
Every little victory counts. And even if you have a day where you feel stuck, remember that it's part of the process too. You'll break through that wall eventually.
Absolutely. And you've got to be patient and trust that those breakthroughs will happen. The key is persistence. As long as you keep going, the progress will come.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if you ever feel stuck, reach out to other learners or a teacher. Having a support system can make a huge difference.
I couldn't agree more. Whether it's online communities, local meetups, or even social media groups, connecting with others can give you new perspectives and keep you motivated.
Plus, it's just nice someone to share your language learning journey with. You can encourage each other when things get tough, celebrate together when you hit a milestone.
That sense of community is so valuable. It reminds you that you're not alone in the process. There are so many people out there learning just like you.
Exactly. And everyone's journey is unique, but that's what makes it so special. You get to make your own path and do it in a way that works best for you.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've covered some fantastic points today. So many great insights for anyone learning a new language. Thank you so much for joining me, Jacob.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jacob, and to all of you listening. Remember, language learning is a journey, and every step counts. Stay consistent, have fun, and most importantly, don't give up. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Keep learning, and we'll see you in the next one.